When it's time to compose your developer portfolio, I think many of us can agree that the development of the portfolio website isn't the tricky part. The tricky part can be trying to figure out exactly what projects to include in the portfolio. A common question that I get is, can I use projects that I created in tutorials on my portfolio? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, with many caveats. So let's talk about them. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and if this is your first time seeing me, hi, I'm Bree, and I am super happy to have you here. As a new developer, trying to figure out exactly what projects you want to include in your portfolio can be a little daunting. I think some of us sometimes think that we have to go out and create these extremely huge projects, and sometimes we don't always have the time to do so. So a lot of the projects that we have either come from courses, whether they be like online courses or YouTube courses, or lectures if you are in college or a university where you are completing projects as a whole group in class. Can these projects be added to your portfolio? Yes, but not in the state that you completed them in. You should do some work to them, and we're going to talk about that work today. Do not add the tutorial version of a project to your portfolio without having changed anything. By this, I mean once you complete the code for the tutorial and the tutorial's over, don't just add that version of the project to your portfolio. And we'll talk about why. So I'm excited for today's video because it's something that I am asked very often, and I've wanted to go in depth about this for a while, and I hope that it's going to be useful to everyone. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go very deep into my last statement of do not put the tutorial version of a project on your portfolio. I'm going to show you a demo of a tutorial project that is very common that I think a lot of people have seen. And what I did is I reimagined it to something that I would feel comfortable putting on a portfolio. So we're gonna take a look at both of those versions and we can see what changed. And I'm also going to discuss ways to improve the presentation of these projects that you add to your portfolio. So as always, the timestamps are below, and I've also left the link to my GitHub repo that I created for the demo project that we're going to be displaying below as well. So feel free to go ahead and check those out. So before I get started, I want to make a very clear distinction of the projects that I'm talking about. When I say tutorial project, I mean going online and Googling how to develop like a calculator. And you follow that tutorial from start to finish, and you just leave the project, the tutorial project as that. Like you don't make any changes to it. You only do what the video has said to do. I am not talking about projects that you might complete as like a capstone project where you have a lot of control over the work that you're doing, and it's basically a culmination of the knowledge that you've learned to create your own project. I'm not talking about those like capstones type projects that are a lot of work that you have to like put into it and there's no real tutorial. The project itself is kind of like the final grade. So I just want to go ahead and make that distinction before we get any further into the video. So like I said before, you can indeed add tutorial projects to your portfolio, but with a caveat. So you might be saying, Bree, why can't I just put the tutorial project on the portfolio? I completed the tutorial and it is an exact representation of what I learned during the tutorial. And to that I say false. Adding this project unchanged shows that you can follow directions and that you can follow along with the tutorial. By the way, those are two very important skills to have still, but it doesn't show exactly what you learned. Let's think about it for a second. Why do we even go through the hassle of creating portfolios to display our development work? We do it to show potential clients or employers or basically whoever our general target audience is what our skills are and what we do. So let's break this developer portfolio away from the realm of just software engineering and development, and let's look at it a little bit more broadly. I think we can compare our portfolios to the portfolio of an artist or of a photographer. If you take a look at multiple artist or multiple photographer portfolios, you may find work that is similar, but each individual artist and photographer has put their own spin or their own signature on their work. If you line up 100 photographers and you tell them to shoot the same sunset and they're taking pictures of the same sunset, I guarantee you it's more than likely that every single photographer is either going to have a different way of how they shoot photos of the sunset, or they're going to have a different way of how they edit the photos of the sunset. And when you take a look at all of the end results, they may be similar because they took a photo of the same sunset, but they're all going to have their own spin on them. If you're in the job market at all and a hiring manager is looking at your portfolio, it is likely that they have seen 50 or 100 or however many websites in the time that they have been both hiring for this position and just hiring in general. And honestly, this is your point or your time to set yourself apart from all of the other portfolios that they have viewed and basically make yourself stand out as a developer. So let's say they are scrolling and they're looking through your projects and they come across one that you just added from a tutorial that you haven't changed at all. And you may be saying, hey, how are they gonna even know it's a tutorial project? Well, that's a valid question. So they may not look at it and go, I know exactly what tutorial, exactly what course this person copied this project from. They didn't even change anything. It's more than likely going to be something like, oh, I've seen this project before, either something similar or something exactly the same. For instance, how many times and in how many ways can we customize a calculator? I think a calculator is a very common application that we all use, we've all seen. I think most of us as developers have created our own versions. It's not something that I would necessarily put on my portfolio just because there's only so many things I can do with a calculator. So for instance, let's consider Colt Steele's web development bootcamp that can be found on Udemy. I really like the course. I think it's fantastic. It's very comprehensive. It is a great starting point for new developers. And most of all, if you can catch a Udemy sale, which they usually pop up very often, it can be a very inexpensive alternative to a traditional bootcamp to sort of get you on your feet in terms of like web development and getting more familiar with different components of web development. I am not sponsored or anything by this course. I just really like it. I will go ahead and leave a link to it below if you would like to check it out. Anyway, that aside, one of the projects that is completed in that course is an RGB color game. There are tons of people who have this project on their portfolio, and I know for a fact a lot of people have this on their portfolio in an unchanged form, where basically they completed that section of the course, and after they completed the project, they just put it on their portfolio as it is. Now, the first time hiring managers or people who are looking at portfolios saw this, I'm sure that they were very wowed by it. They thought it was cool. But by the 100th time that they saw it, maybe not so much. I'm sure that they were impressed again, but it's probably just an instance of this is something that I've seen before. So it's not that you can't add the RGB color game or that you shouldn't add something from that course, or any course really, to your portfolio, but you should try to tweak some things, change it, make it your own, and take it one step further before you do so. So now that I have discussed why you shouldn't do it, which is important, I think it's more important to show you an example of how you could change or update a tutorial project in order to add it to your portfolio. That way it doesn't seem like you just added something that you completed in a basic phase to your portfolio. What I'm gonna do is take you through a demo of the basic RGB color game in case you haven't seen it before, explain to you what it does, and then I'm going to tell you exactly how I added new features or what features you could think about adding to your version. And then I'm going to explain what things I would add to my GitHub repo to improve the presentation of this project overall. So we're going to be taking this tutorial project from basic to bangin' real quick. So basically what I want to do is go ahead and walk you all through the original version of the color game, show you its basic features in case you're not familiar, and then I want to show you a redesigned or reimagined version of the color game that I would definitely feel comfortable with adding to my portfolio based on some of the changes that I've made. So this is the RGB color game. Basically we are given an RGB color code and we have to use that color code to determine which one of these squares best fills resembles that color. So this has a little bit of red, a lot of green, and some blue as well. I'm not amazing with these colors, but I just want to walk you through. So basically what happens if you have an incorrect guess is that square just disappears. And then if you do end up guessing correctly, what happens is the squares A all come back and B, they all turn the correct color. So all of these squares that you see on the screen presently are of this RGB color code. Now, this version of the color game, it has two different difficulties. One is easy and one is hard. There's no change in the gameplay other than with easy, you get 2 squares, and with hard, you get false. Did I say 2? With easy, you get 6 squares, and with hard, you get 9. So it just bumps up the difficulty a little bit because you have more options to choose from. So what happens after you have completed the game? It took me almost all of the tries there, but basically there's nothing really that happens. You just can choose the option to choose new colors, and you will get a new RGB color code, and you will get more options to choose from. So I really like this game because it's very good for learning DOM manipulation and how that works and how to interact with the DOM from JavaScript. So I really love this example specifically, which is why I recreated it. I think it's something that a lot of new developers can relate to. I know that I felt so cool once I completed this game on my own for the very first time. So now what I want to do is take you through the reimagined version that I created for this RGB color game. And before I do that, I do just want to let you know again that the GitHub link is in the description in case you want to play around with these two versions yourself. This little banner up here that says that the redesigned version of the color game, that's not in the original. That's just something that I created to help you. So this is my redesigned version, and at first it might seem very bare and a little unassuming in comparison to the other one, but one of the things that I really wanted to do with this version of the color game is make it an actual game. So the original, you can just play infinitely. We love that. We love just matching, getting new colors as you want to. You can just stop when you don't feel like you want to match colors anymore. With the version that I've created, it's more of a game in the fact that I added a timer, and you have to complete a certain amount of guesses correct before you are considered a winner, and if you don't, unfortunately, you might need some more practice. So let me just walk you through my way of thinking about how I wanted to redesign it. So one of the first things, like I said, you could do when you want to make a project your own is update some of the CSS. So I like the blue that we were using here, so I kept that sort of the same throughout the project. But what I did, instead of having this banner up here, is I just created a header. And I used this header to give my color game the name of Color Mania with a cute little emoji. But I also used it to house the easy and hard modes, and also house one of the other changes that I made, which is you can play Color Mania with RGB or hex, which is why I changed the name from the Great RGB Color Game to Color Mania. So let's just take a look at one of the changes that I made in action. So as soon as you hit start, you'll notice that you have the color code here, basically the same as the other. We have a score now, which is different, and we also have a timer that is actively counting down as I speak. So if we see this color code and we get it wrong, instead of one of the colors just fading away, what happens is we can still see the outline of the circle here, but it actually tells you what the color code of the circle that you selected is. And when you do get it correct, it flashes for a second with the correct color and then moves you right on to the next question. So there, you don't have to have a new colors button because we are on a timer. There are stakes, you know, there are things at play. So if you get 5 correctly, and I highly doubt I will get 5 correctly in the next 2 seconds. Oh, mate, can I? Oh, I did. Look at me. Just guessing out there. But what happens when you get at least 5 correct is you get a screen that just lets you know that you won and tells you exactly what your final score is. That is also an enhancement and something a little bit different from the original. And if you say, hey, I won, but I want to play again, that's all you have to do is just hit the play again button and it resets things for you. So some of the similarities are, it's basically still the same color game. The point of reimagining this project was not to strip out the original functionality, but to add on to what I had learned. So I said a few seconds ago, this game is great for learning DOM manipulation. It's also a great learning opportunity to add a timer for intervals and making sure that the interval is still active or that the timer is still active while people are playing, trying to figure out how you're going to programmatically add those winning or losing screens, checking for the score. And something that I also played around with that you won't see in the browser is the color conversions for RGB to hex. So when you change it to hex, the board is still the same, but you'll notice that instead of an RGB value here, it is a hex color code and you have a ton of colors to pick from. And the game fundamentally works the same. If you get it incorrect, that hex code is going to show up in that empty circle. But if you do get it correct, it's going to flash with the correct color, and then you're going to be able to move on to the next guessing color. So I'm going to let the timer run out so I can let you see the losing screen or the you need practice screen. Okay, so I got 1 correct, unfortunately, and it just lets me know that I might need practice, but again, the play again button is still there, it's still the same. So think about how you're going to add on to or plus the experience of your tutorial project before you're adding it to your portfolio. It's not that you have to change functionality or fundamentally change everything that you learned, but how can you take what you learned to the next level by implementing your own features and just improving that experience? That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, this is still a color game. Anybody who's looking at this project is going to be able to likely see where I got inspiration, but they're also going to be able to see that I added my own features that might not, hopefully won't be. I guess since I'm sharing it with the internet, this might happen, but these features won't necessarily be on somebody else's portfolio. There's some things that I thought up on my own, or even if they are sort of common, how you implement the features on your own makes a difference. So what allows you to add these projects to your developer portfolio? It's not about how complex the project is, but it's the steps that you take beyond the tutorial to make it your own and give it some extra flair. So not only is this about not just putting something in a basic state on your portfolio, it's also about enhancing your learning experience. Easy ways to add some sparkle and spice to a project that you completed in a tutorial are updating the styling. Make it look a little bit different. Play around with CSS and see what you can do to make it look like something that you created. Integrate new features. I think this is one of the most important things that you can do to improve the quality of the tutorial project. The tutorial is meant to explain certain features and certain functionality, but integrating your own features basically like takes it up one level, and it says, hey, I learned how to do this and I have a solid foundation in this, but what if I did this? It's likely that you're going to have to research some of those things and basically take what they taught you to the next level. This is one of the best ways to learn new skills. You could also replace any dummy data that you have in the project with a free API. You could also add CRUD functionality with the database, and in case you don't know, CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. And you could also add authentication to a project. These are all great ways to bump up the level or bump up the flair in your project. So what is your favorite project that you have on your portfolio? Let me know in the comments below. So thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful. If it was, go ahead and feel free to let me know in the comments below. And I can't wait to see you all in my next video.